July 1st, 1991. Vero Beach, Florida. The factory that had been building airplanes since 1937 went quiet. Not because of a strike or a fire or a market that had run out of buyers. Piper Aircraft filed for Chapter 11, bankruptcy, because the American legal system had made it economically irrational to build airplanes. The airplane that put them there was the PA-28R Arrow, a 4-seat retractable, first flown in 1967, powered by a Lycoming IO360 engine, built on a Cherokee airframe that Piper had been refining for a decade. The Arrow was not defective. The NTSB confirmed that, case by case, across years of litigation. The accidents were real. The Arrow's fault in them was not. Piper spent the better part of a decade defending lawsuits they did not cause, paying premiums they could not sustain, and absorbing institutional costs that had nothing to do with the engineering quality of the airplane they were building. Then they stopped building it. Then they came back. And the Arrow they came back with cost 5 times what the 1977 model had cost, adjusted for inflation. Subscribe to Sky Ranch. The bankruptcy is where this story begins. The $500,000 sticker is where it ends. The Arrow that went into the Vero Beach factory in 1967 was a Cherokee 180 with folding legs. Piper saw a gap in the light retractable market. Mooney owned it. Nobody else was competing seriously for the pilot who wanted to step up from a fixed-gear trainer into something that cruised at 130 knots with a constant speed prop and gear that tucked away clean. The Arrow filled that gap. Electromechanical retractable gear. Lycoming IO360 B1E, 180 horsepower. A price of $16,900 in 1967, roughly what a new pickup truck cost in the same year. What Piper built worked. The Arrow flew with the same forgiving handling as the Cherokee it came from, same low-wing stability, same predictable stall, same wide-stance gear that let a student practice wheels-down landings without punishing every imperfect approach. The constant speed prop pushed cruise performance into a range that serious cross-country pilots needed. The gear gave flight schools a step-up platform that transitioned naturally from the trainers they already operated. Flight instructors trusted it. Insurance underwriters gave lower rates to pilots transitioning in Arrows specifically because of that trust. The airplane moved through the market on genuine merit, not marketing. The Arrow was the airplane that made the retractable accessible. Before it, the step from a Cherokee to a retractable meant jumping to a Mooney or a Comanche, different airframe, different handling, different muscle memory on every control surface. The Arrow gave pilots the same Cherokee cockpit, the same familiar switches, the same handling characteristics, with one addition, a gear lever and 3 green lights. The transition was logical. The economics made sense. A working pilot who spent 3 years building hours in a Cherokee 140 could move into an Arrow and recognize everything except the airspeed numbers. By 1972, Piper had stretched the fuselage 5 inches to create the Arrow 2, providing more rear legroom while keeping the same proven power plant. By 1977, the Arrow 3 arrived with a semi-tapered wing, larger stabilator, and 24 additional gallons of fuel. Approximately 6,000 to 7,000 Arrows of all variants would eventually be built, making it one of the most produced retractable gear-light aircraft in history. The average equipped price at delivery in 1977 was $50,320. That year, the competition included the Cessna Cardinal RG at $50,095, the Rockwell Commander 112 at $61,295, the Beech Sierra at $53,594, and the Mooney 201 at $57,420. All were priced within a few $1,000s of the Arrow. The market was functioning. Multiple manufacturers were competing. Buyers had choices. In 1978, American factories delivered 17,811 general aviation aircraft. That production volume was large enough to spread the certification overhead across thousands of buyers. The overhead was real, but the denominator was working in the buyer's favor. A 1977 Arrow III, adjusted for the Consumer Price Index, is worth approximately $261,000 in 2024 dollars. A 2019 Arrow, same airframe, same engine family, same structural certification, same 4 seats and retractable gear, retailed at nearly $500,000. The gap above inflation is $239,000. That $239,000 did not build a faster airplane. It did not build a safer one. The engine block under the cowl is the same air-cooled 4-cylinder Lycoming design that powered the 1967 model. The spar structure is the same aluminum monocoque that received its type certificate in 1960. The $239,000 is a bill, an institutional bill, assembled over 4 decades by 3 failures that never appeared on any invoice, never improved any airplane, and never stopped compounding. 3 line items, none of them on the sticker. The first failure arrived in the 1960s and took 20 years to fully detonate. The FAA certifies general aviation aircraft under Part 23. The regulation governs any aircraft under 19,000 pounds with 19 or fewer seats. That classification puts a 4-seat retractable trainer and a high-performance corporate turboprop under an identical compliance framework. When avionics software entered cockpits in the 1990s, the FAA required every line of flight code to pass DO 178 validation, the same standard applied to a business jet's full flight management system, now applied to a Skylane's attitude indicator. The certification overhead ran up to $20 million per avionics product for the certified fleet. The equivalent instrument to ASTM consensus standards cost approximately $2 million, an $18 million compliance gap per instrument spread across the panel behind you. A new Part 23 type certification costs approximately $25 million. The equivalent ASTM certification costs approximately $250,000, 100 times more expensive to certify, not 100 times safer to fly. The Arrow's retractable gear carries its own slice of that overhead. Annual mandatory gear swing testing runs approximately $1,000 per year on top of the standard annual. That is not a charge for improved gear. That is a charge for the regulatory architecture wrapped around the gear. Replacement hydraulic components, actuators, pump assemblies, pressure switches. All are Part 23 certified, all priced against a wall with no competition behind it. The gear that makes the Arrow a retractable is also the gear that makes every maintenance line item on the Arrow a certified-only cost. Retractable gear insurance runs approximately 30% more than comparable fixed-gear aircraft. That premium reflects the complexity the FAA's certification framework assumes about the system. That complexity compounds in every repair quote, every annual, every inspection cycle, every logbook entry for the life of the airframe. The hydraulic pump that runs the Arrow's gear is a specialized component. The solenoid valves, the actuators, the pressure relief assemblies do not have an uncertified equivalent available at the auto parts counter. Every replacement comes through the certified supply chain, priced against a captive market with no alternative. The mechanic who needs a gear pump for an Arrow is not shopping. He is accepting the price on the shelf. That overhead does not go away. It loads onto every unit produced, spread across a shrinking production run, billed to whoever buys the airplane at the end of the line. Then the second failure hit, and the production run that was absorbing that overhead collapsed almost entirely. In 1976, the general aviation industry was paying approximately $24 million industry-wide in product liability premiums. By 1985, that figure had reached $210 million, an 875% increase in 9 years. Per aircraft, the numbers were worse. In 1962, liability insurance cost manufacturers approximately $51 per plane delivered. By 1985, that number had climbed to $70,000 per airplane. In 1985 and 1986 alone, aviation products liability premiums increased 6 times in 12 months. One major manufacturer's annual premium went from $12 million to over $70 million. Lloyd's of London exited the general aviation liability market during this period. Their stated reason was precise. They were prepared to insure the risks of aviation. They were not prepared to insure the risks of the American legal system. When an underwriter with a century of experience pricing catastrophic risk decides the exposure has crossed from calculable to irrational, the exposure has crossed that line. Piper stopped buying product liability coverage entirely in 1987. For 4 years, they flew financial exposure with no insurance cushion before the bankruptcy. Everyone in the industry saw coming, finally hit the courthouse in Miami on July 1, 1991. The Piper that filed that petition had manufactured approximately 135,000 aircraft since 1937. Approximately 50,000 to 60,000 remained operational in the United States when the petition landed. The court record is explicit on the cause, not market decline, not engineering failure. The drain of escalating litigation costs in connection with defending product liability claims. Piper had never acknowledged its products were harmful or defective. The NTSB had investigated the underlying accidents. The record did not support defect claims. Piper spent the money defending cases it did not cause, and in many instances won, at a cost that destroyed the company anyway. That is the structure worth naming. A manufacturer produces an airplane. The airplane works. Pilots crash it. The courts find the manufacturer. The manufacturer defends cases the NTSB determined were pilot error, not design failure. The premiums become uninsurable. The manufacturer stops building the airplane. The working pilot who wanted to fly an affordable certified retractable lost the market. What closed it is documented in the bankruptcy filings of the company that built the airplane they wanted. Is that a legal failure, an engineering failure, or a regulatory failure? One answer. Leave it in the comments. In 1994, Senator Nancy Kassebaum of Kansas, whose state housed Cessna, Beechcraft, and the supply chains that fed them, shepherded the General Aviation Revitalization Act through Congress. GARA established an 18-year statute of repose on general aviation aircraft. President Clinton signed it on August 17, 1994. Piper emerged from bankruptcy in 1995 as New Piper Aircraft Incorporated. It was sold for $95 million and it restarted production. The 2001 Arrow base price was $249,700. That number is the second act of the story, not the resolution. GARA fixed the liability clock. It did not fix the certification overhead. It did not rebuild the competitive landscape that a decade of bankruptcy and pre-bankruptcy decline had destroyed. The companies that would have competed with Piper in the light retractable market had gone under in the 1980s. The ones that survived faced the same $25 million type certificate entry cost that had always made new competition irrational. The Cessna Cardinal RG had been discontinued in 1978. The Rockwell Commander once 112 was gone by 1979. The Beech Sierra's production had wound down. The Grumman Tiger struggled on for a few years and then stopped. The competing certified retracts that would have pressured Arrow pricing in a healthy market were ghosts. GARA brought back the manufacturer. It brought back exactly one manufacturer. The competitive market that would have disciplined pricing never recovered, because the wall that prevented new entry in 1975 was the same wall that prevented new entry in 1995 and is the same wall that prevents it today. The Arrow came back into a market with no serious competition at its price point. That is where the third failure runs. With no affordable certified retractable in the market to check pricing discipline, original equipment manufacturers set parts prices without constraint. The Lycoming IO 360 in the 1977 Arrow and the IO 360 in the 2019 model are the same engine family. Air-cooled, 4-cylinder, horizontally opposed. The engineering is essentially unchanged across 5 decades of production. A factory overhaul on that engine today runs approximately $58,000 plus core. A factory-new IO360 runs approximately $105,000. In 1982, a comparable 4-cylinder Arrow overhaul kit ran under $50,000 all in. By 2025, the equivalent parts kit had climbed to $123,000. The engine price nearly tripled. The design stayed where it was in 1967. Parts carrying the same engineering, the same certification, and the same function as the day they were manufactured 4 decades ago get repriced annually by a manufacturer with no competition to check the rate. 4 decades of parts price increases, compounding at approximately 5% annually, unchecked, arrive in every annual inspection bill you sign. None of that overhead improved the engine. The Arrow has one more line item, the Cessna 172 does not. In 2018, a Piper Arrow P-28R 201, operating at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, separated its left wing during a commercial pilot practical exam. Both occupants were killed. NTSB found extensive fatigue cracking in the lower main wing spar cap, in a visually inaccessible area that standard maintenance had no mechanism to detect. The FAA issued Airworthiness Directive 2020-26-16, effective February 16, 2021. Wing Spar inspections required for 11,476 Piper PA-28 and P-32 aircraft in the United States Registry. In September 2024, the FAA proposed 2 additional airworthiness directives expanding that scope. The initial inspections had revealed cracking in models not included in the original directive. The FAA's own language describes both the 2021 Airworthiness Directive and the 2024 proposals as interim action. Further rulemaking may follow. Interim action means the FAA is not done. The investigation into how many airframes are affected is still open. Every Arrow owner flying today is living inside an unfinished airworthiness determination on a certified production airplane priced at $500,000. The mechanic's verdict on all 3 line items is the same one that applied to the Cessna: PMA parts or parts manufacturer. Approval components carry the identical FAA safety certification as OEM parts. When PMA competition entered the certified market in the 1990s, one manufacturer running a parts monopoly immediately marked a $3,600 brake component down to $800 the moment a competitor appeared. The certification wall is baked into the sticker price. The annual parts markup is not baked into anything except the assumption that the buyer does not know an alternative exists. Smart mechanics have used PMA parts for 30 years. Every Arrow owner who learns that a $3,600 brake is available for $800 with the same FAA approval has recovered a portion of what the system charged them. A 1977 Arrow 3 in solid condition, IFR equipped with a recent engine overhaul, sells today for approximately $85,000 to $130,000. That buyer is not flying a compromised airplane. That buyer read the arithmetic, understood what the $500,000 sticker costs and what it actually buys, and made the rational call. In 1980, the FAA counted 357,000 active private pilot certificates in the United States. In 2024, that number was 174,155, 51% below the 1980 peak, 44 years later. The people who held those missing certificates did not stop wanting to fly. The affordable certified airplane they would have trained in, rented, and eventually purchased stopped being available at a price they could reach. The Arrow cost $16,900 in 1967. By the time the system finished assembling its bill, the same airplane cost $500,000. A mechanic in Vero Beach in 1974 could own a Piper Arrow and fly his family to a grass strip 2 states over on a long weekend. Flight schools ran retracts at prices a working wage reached without a financing plan. The light retractable was a working pilot's airplane, maintained by people who understood what was under the cowl and could reach it economically. That version of the market closed gradually between 1979 and now. There are no new competitors certified to build an affordable retractable 4-seat piston single. The pilots who would have bought one are renting instead, or have stopped flying entirely, or are flying sport aircraft that never legally required the overhead that made the Arrow unaffordable. The pipeline that was supposed to move students from trainers into retracts into complex aircraft is broken at exactly the point where the Arrow used to sit. The first generation of affordable certified retracts, the Arrow, the Cardinal RG, the Tiger, the Sierra, aged out of production one by one. The manufacturers who built them either went bankrupt or stopped making piston singles because the economics never recovered. The competitive market that would have held pricing discipline never came back because the $25 million entry cost that always kept new competitors out never changed. The people who built these systems did not set out to price the working pilot permanently out of the sky. The FAA wrote Part 23 to ensure safety. Congress created the liability framework that produced the crisis. The original equipment manufacturers priced their parts against the market available to them. Each decision was individually defensible. The aggregate cost of all of them landing on the same fleet, billed to the same buyers across the same decades, that is the $239,000 gap. Is that a design failure, a legal failure, or a regulatory failure? One answer. Leave it in the comments. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe to Sky Ranch.